Hello and welcome. This video is meant for anyone who wants to write a spooky song or is even just interested in what makes certain songs sound scary. Now before we get started, I just wanted to make a quick note that if you're able to learn anything from this video, to please subscribe. Alright, let's get started. Alright, let's talk some music theory. Now the first technique I wanted to mention in regards to theory is simply writing in a minor key. Yeah, sure, you can write a spooky song in a major key, but if you're looking for an effective spooky way to start off your song, just write in a minor key. Now in regards to melody, or if you're looking for an eerie chord, I recommend these techniques. First up, we have the tritone. It sounds like this. And when played together, like this. Unlike pretty intervals like the major third or perfect fifth, the tritone creates an uneasy feeling. Here's an example of it in a melody. Next up, we have tonal clusters, which are basically what happens in Jumanji when the lion climbs over the piano. Simply put, it's playing a bunch of notes really close together, like this. The effect is dissonance, something that sounds off and a little eerie. Catching the theme yet? The next two examples involve stepping out of the mold of key signatures. The first one is the flat 5, which sounds like this when used in a melody. So instead of playing that G as normal, we lower it a semitone and play a G flat. The second example is the flat 6. Here's what it sounds like. As you can hear, the result is similar to the lowered 5th in that it creates an odd, unpleasant dissonance. Also note that it is most effective when you play the non-flat just before the flat. So in the flat 6, we played the A natural before the A flat. The next element of musical creepiness I wanted to touch on is going against musical norms. This can be seen in a variety of ways. One attainable by playing instruments unconventionally, like playing a violin high out of its range, or even playing a violin with a bow upside down, like in Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique. In that piece, that technique was used to create this eerie sound similar to skeleton bones clacking. Another example of defying musical norms happens when you reverse common counterpoint. What I mean by this is that it's very common to write a melody in the mid to high range. So if you were to write a melody in an extreme low range or an extreme high range, it gives this eerie feeling. Think of the shark theme in Jaws. It starts off with a solo melody in the extreme low end, and those low, daunting bass notes create this bizarre effect that make the listener feel on edge, knowing that something bad is going to happen. And the last example of going against the musical norm is unresolved tension. Here's what I mean. You hear that? You hear how it wants to go somewhere beyond that last chord? Well, that's because I created this tension in the chord progression and just left it there without any resolution. This can be a really good device to use when you want to set up for a really intense scare. And now I wanted to talk about instrumentation, and that's something that I think is overlooked, but is actually really key in creating a spooky sound. That's because there are some noises and instruments that stimulate the fight or flight response and really get the heart beating. They're also known as non-linear sounds. Some of these instruments include the waterphone, a theremin, an out-of-tune piano, and one of my personal favorites, the trautonium. The trautonium is an early synthesizer, keyboard-like instrument most known for its use in the Hitchcock film The Birds. Now there are even some nonlinear sounds that occur in nature, like large animal noises, and even the human scream. And now one of the last topics I wanted to mention today, the way in which we compose an arrangement. A great example of this is that melodies or even progressions that arise are a little bit more uneasy and unsettling than melodies that fall. Maybe you've heard of the shepherd's tone? Well, what's happening in this example is actually an illusion. It sounds like the pitch continues to rise and rise, but what's actually happening is a clever and precise arrangement of ascending tones. It's kind of like how a spiraling barber's pole looks like it goes up and up endlessly, and that endless rise puts the viewer or the listener in a state of panic. It's as if something is approaching, engaging, or ready to explode at any moment. Another compositional technique is creating cognitive dissonance. You usually see this in music whenever a lullaby is being played in a scary movie, either on a toy piano or a music box. But what makes a lullaby so scary? Aren't they meant to sing small children to sleep? Well, it turns out that when you put a commonly comforting sound or symbol in the midst of terror, the result is pretty creepy. And that's because of cognitive dissonance. One of my favorite examples of this is in Super Mario 64, when Mario visits the world Big Boo's haunt and comes across creepy carousel music. Carousel rides are typically fun, but when placed inside a haunted house that's trapped inside a cursed cage, it's terrifying. Next, I wanted to bring up the classic jump scare. Now, a jump scare occurs whenever there is a sudden bang, seemingly out of nowhere. Now, anyone can put a loud bang in a piece of music, but the real trick is making sure it's earned. What I mean by this is simply to start by creating a state of uneasiness, kind of like when you're walking alone in the dark woods, and you can hear the branches crack when you walk, but then start to think that there's branches cracking about 100 feet behind you. So you stop to look back and the other branches you thought you heard stop too. Then you continue to walk and hear the branches break 100 feet again. And now they're seeming like they're coming closer, like 75 feet, and now 50. And as your heart starts to pick up, so does your pace. Without stopping, you look back once more, but it's too dark and you're walking too fast to tell if anyone's behind you. You pick up your pace and realize that you're now running, and then jump scare. They're not easy to pull off, but when done well, it creates one of the most effective forms of spooky in music. And finally, there's lyrics. Now, I don't have a lot to talk about this subject, but I think it makes most sense when you think of them kind of like jump scares. You don't want to reveal the monster or the demon right away. If you want to write lyrics that are effective at being spooky, then you have to suspend disbelief. You want to get the listener to feel uneasy and on edge, and at the very end, hit them with the real scare. And that, my friends, is how to write a spooky song. Now, if you used even just one of these techniques I mentioned today, my hope is that you'll at least be closer to the desired effect you're looking for. And if you enjoyed this video and got something out of what I said, I would encourage you to please hit that subscribe button. As always, know that I'm here to encourage you and strongly believe that anything that pops in your head is worthy of becoming the next greatest spooky song. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.